how could he not trust Hashem and know that Hashem will save him? That was kind of the statement. But it goes back to all our conversations about how that book anyway.
I think that it's not even so much that he didn't trust that Hashem was going to bring him back. I think it's more that he constantly lived with
the fear.
that. It's the insecurity about the fact of what he did wrong. Like when he stole the Bechorah,
right. So
constantly like I'm going to get punished now.
So I agree that that's very present. At the end of the day, though, the question is, if you say he is insecure and he understands that Hashem might punish him and it's all between him and Hashem, or you say that, yes, he's a human and he's actually afraid of his brother, right? I agree with you, but I think that
he feels that there's consequences for some of the things he did. It's always like that. When it came to him marrying both sisters, it was a consequence because she sold the Torah. Now this one gets, which one?
No, I agree 100%.
I think it's constantly this turmoil that he has with, with the actions of what he did.
Right. I agree 100%. I just, at the time, what the guy was saying was, how could you even think you understand Yaakov? Because, he's so high and mighty and, removed. And that was really the...
You can't say about anything, any explanation. How could you assume?
There's Abraham too. How could you not think you can get through 10 years to know that Hashem was constantly with him? I mean, there's so many times that you could say, how could you think that?
But in many cases, Chazal go in both directions, and they look at the more human aspect of the story and at the more perfect aspect. And apparently, there are both ways to read the story.
But also, he might have been not just afraid for himself, but for his family.
I understand. But even if you say he's afraid for his family and he doesn't trust in Hashem, it's really the same. But there's also a difference between being careful and being afraid, right? You have to take precautions. Okay. And at the end of the day, it's very clear that he did that. The question is if he's also afraid. I think it's clear that he's also afraid. And he's a human being, and it's not hard for me to say that. But this other person had
Moshe wasn't afraid. He was totally afraid.
Hashem? Moshe.
He was afraid to be in charge. He wasn't,
again, it's a question of how we relate to the characters in Tanakh. And some would say, like we're saying here, that yes, they're human beings. They're very, very special human beings, but they're still human beings. And others would say, you don't even understand. It's a different ways of learning. It's called Tanakh B'Gavarnayim, if you've heard the term.
I've got a question because it talks again about where Rachel is buried, and it says specifically Ephrata near Bethlehem.
Right. So there are a lot of commentaries that say, I don't know about ancient commentaries, but people today who say, first of all, Bethlehem, there are many Bethlehems. That we said that. Every city had a Bethlehem.
I thought there were many. Ephratas. I thought there were.
No, there were many Bethlehems.
Right, yeah.
But the word Ephrat could refer to Nachalat Shevet Ephraim, which is further north. Ephrat might be Ha'Ephrati means from Ephraim.
But why would we question two specifics that are like right by
Because the only reason we call this Ephrat is because we recognize Bethlehem. Ephrat here is because of Bethlehem.
Oh. Don't tell them.
Yeah. Anyway. Okay. I think many people there know that.
Are they because my husband, he was floored. Are there any sources for this?
For what I said? Who says it? I'm pretty sure that like the Gush rabbis, a lot of them say this. Like I've heard Aviot Binun say it. And I don't know, I think most of the Pshat modern rabbis say this. I think it's pretty accepted amongst most of them, but maybe I'm wrong.
Okay.
But I can look it up for you and see who says what.
I would love that.
Yeah, I don't remember who says it exactly. Anyway, okay. So we start the parsha. Yaakov is sending messengers to Esav, and it's clear that what's happening here, it's kind of like what encompasses this week's parsha is that they're going back, right? Yaakov left home last week, right? He and now he's coming back, and coming back is dangerous, right? Coming back is complicated. Coming back is where Esav lives. So he comes back, and he sends messengers to Esav, and he tells them, go tell Esav, ibn Avad Garti, vaycharad ata, I've been with Lavan, and I was held back, right? I was late. And I have all these animals and these servants, and he's sending a gift, right? He sends gifts to Esav, and then they go and they see Esav has 400 people with him, which sounds like he's going to war, meaning this doesn't look good. Okay, so if we're discussing whether he's afraid or not, it seems pretty clear that he is afraid. He splits the nation. It's interesting that it's called a nation, right? His family is suddenly a nation, and he splits it into two machanot, into two camps.
Who called it a nation? Him.
The pasuk. It just says in the pasuk, "Vayachas et ha'am."
Can I ask you a question? We're talking very much about Yaakov being afraid to meet up with Esav. We also talk about the fact that Rachel gets buried and then Leah. Like meaning Leah also, there's a slight responsibility from her too, because technically she's really supposed to marry Esav. He came also to meet up with her. Doesn't mention even that anything to do with Leah passing away. We know that she's buried together in Marat Machpelah. We know that whole thing. There's almost like we give the whole,
Focus.
Floor to Rachel, and then she's just like the one that had all the children. I don't know. Like I just feel like she's not given any kavod. Any thoughts about that? Meaning he should be equally as angry at her, like furious. You should have married. You should be married.
Esav.
Meaning, yeah.
Right. It doesn't seem like Esav is interested in marrying her. He is married. He already married a few wives. Like he married the first, and like he's already
like he's such a vengeance person, so angry. You would think that this would be something also. Then might be you took it away from me.
I understand. It doesn't seem like this is something that he was like. Yeah.
So why was Yaakov so careful about Rachel? To hide her?
I think he was protecting her because he thought there was going to be a war. I don't think he thought Esav wanted her. I think he just was afraid she would be hurt, that Esav might.
But her, not Leah. We don't hear about
he puts them both behind. He puts Rachel and Leah behind. Yes, Rachel is further behind. But he seems to be protecting both of them. We'll get there in a minute. But he puts Rachel achorona, but Leah's right before her. He puts the shvachot first, of course, right?
The what?
The shvachot, the concubines. Bilhah go first. Anyway, I don't think Esav was so interested in Leah. There is a midrash about Dinah. They hid Dinah in a box so that Esav wouldn't. It doesn't seem like in the ancient world, even like people who are pretty nasty, it seems like they don't, like there's a level of nastiness and people on a certain level don't take married women.
Oh, so there was honor.
So,
hello.
In all the stories, right, of Gar and Mitzrayim, it seems clear that the places they're going to, they're more concerned that, what happens is they take the wives Abraham and Yitzchak think that they would take them even if they're married, but at the end of the day, the people say, why didn't you tell me if you were married, I wouldn't have touched her. Like there is some level. What?
Why would they think that?
Why would they think that they were not married?
Why would they think that they would kill him?
Why did Abraham think that? Right. So apparently he has a certain assumption about the morality of the people, but apparently there's like levels of morality, and there are people at a certain level that would take a single woman and not a married woman. It's like there are crazy stories about like communities where there were rapists who would rape women after they went to the mikveh because if they're a nida, I'm like, come on. But if they're not a nida, then whatever. I'm just saying that there are different levels of
twisted.
Exactly. Thank you. But whatever it is, it doesn't seem, I don't know. At least in the Midrash about Dinah, it seems like they're more concerned about hiding Dinah. They didn't put Rachel in a box. They're just too big to go in a box. I don't know. I don't know.
Poor Leah.
Yeah, it sounds here more like they're prepared for war than prepared for keeping away stalkers. Like it sounds like the war is what.
But his engagement and his preparedness for it was quite brilliant.
No, he prepares and he splits them and he makes a gift and he davens. We talk about this is how we prepare for something. We daven to Hashem, we prepare for the worst, and we try to to make peace. It's like
He didn't do it in that order though. He prepared first and then davened to
No.
Hashem.
Well, he doesn't know when it's going to come. He needs to be prepared.
Right.
And then he says the beautiful words, katonti mikol chasadim. So he says to Hashem, he says, you've given me so much, and please let me keep it. I'm in Pasuk, Perek Lamed Pasuk Yud. קנטונתי מכל החסדים וכל האמת אשר עשית את עבדיך, כי ימות עברתי את הירדן ואתה הייתי לשתי מחנות. So he says, I came alone with my staff and now I'm two big camps. הצילני מיד אחי מיד עשיו, save me, כי ירא אנוכי אותו. This is also pretty bad, I'm afraid of him, right? ירא אנוכי אותו, how else can you read that? פן יבוא ויקני אם על בנים, and he says, please protect us. And then וילן שם בלילה, and he goes to sleep in that place. And he sends all these gifts to Esav. I don't want to go into all the details of the gift, but I do want to mention that he takes them, he crosses the river with all his family, and then it sounds like they cross at night, right? And then he goes back to collect something. It doesn't say what. It says Veivater levato, and Rashi says that he left his Tupperware behind, some little pieces of, right, what's the deal? But anyway, but he stays behind and he meets this Ish, right? Yes. And it's interesting how we've mentioned this before, but a lot of times in Tanakh, Dafka, when it says Ish, is when it's an angel, and when it says an angel, it's not necessarily an angel, because he sent Malachim in the beginning of the Parsha. It seems like they're just people, right? I think their Rashi might also say they might be Malachim.
Why did they do that?
Why did they do that? I think that the word, sure, you can close it completely. It's fine.
Yeah,
I think the word Malach in ancient Hebrew meant messenger, not necessarily angel. The words are connected because an angel, we talk about how they have a shlichut, they have like a right, they have like a role. But anyway, he stays behind and he meets this Ish, and they fight Adalot Shachar. And the word Vayavik, we're not going to go into it today, but it's a fascinating word, Vayavik. Literally, it seems to mean to struggle. But there are all kinds of different explanations of
why would they fight him? Why did they?
He's alone at night and somebody attacks him. I don't know.
So he was attacked
by the angel. It seems like it. He stays behind and he has his struggle. I don't know. It's very strange.
Why.
Right. The Chazal say that it's a representation of Esav.
There's also like Chazal that says that the things he went back to get up in the future. Like there is a Chazal that says that it's connected to the Zman of Hanukkah and things like that. Like that's what the Kaifi were or whatever. But I don't know if that's true or just consistent Rashi. But they say that they criticize his kids.
That they left him behind.
That they let him walk alone. That somebody should have been with them. And that they say at night, but I don't know. They said that.
Well, there is Chazal say not to walk alone at night. I wonder if that's what they're doing. Yeah. Whatever it is, something here happens. And we talked about how like he's preparing for this meeting with Esav, and suddenly it's not like he thought. It seems like at this meeting in the middle of the night, something shifted. Like there was like a bomb and like it was diffused. Mm-hmm. Like something there happened in that struggle that diffused the anger that Esav had for him. And I think this is why Chazal say that it's Saro Shel Esav, that it's some kind of like spiritual representation of Esav. And once Yaakov overcomes this, this thing, then there's no fight. Then it just like it's gone. And I think this is a fascinating idea. And I think that it's also interesting that in Chazal, Esav has become like the representation of Yetzer Hara. And I think it's very interesting to look at this parsha that way and to see that Yaakov is meeting up with his, let's say it's Yetzer Hara, right? So what do you do, right? What do you do? So there's a struggle and there's a gift and there's a separation, and Chazal do a lot with that. And it's very interesting, this struggle. So there are different explanations of the word Vayavik. So again, Pshat Vayavik is the struggle. There's another midrash that says that it's like avak, like dust. So when they were fighting, they like the dust, went up. But there's one midrash I think is very interesting that I think Rashi brings that says Vayavek is milshon avuka. So like how on the Havdalah candle you're supposed to light a candle that has a few wicks that are intertwined.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this idea that it's an avuka is that they were intertwined. And I think if we're looking at this struggle as an expression of our relationship with Yetzer Hara, so part of what this struggle is showing us is that it's so hard to separate sometimes between the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hara. And I think we know this, like in this world, a lot of times it's so hard. And there's a beautiful quote that I might have mentioned here, but I don't remember if I did, about the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hara. that I've heard B'Shem Rav Michi Yosefi. Rav Michi Yosefi is like a Rav who talks a lot of Breslov. But anyway, so he said this idea that the Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Hara say the same thing at different times. Okay? So the Yetzer Tov, before you do something wrong, he says to you, don't do it. It's a really bad idea. Come on, hold off. It's really not a good idea. It's really bad. And the Yetzer Hara says, oh, come on. Everybody's doing it. It's not such a big deal. It's okay. And after the fact, they switch. After the fact, the Yetzer Tov says, it's okay. Everybody does it. You can get up again. It's fine. And the Yetzer Hara says, what do you do? I can't believe it. It's such a big deal. And I think that, first of all, this is just like kind of an example of how sometimes we can so much confuse the two because they really are so connected. And I think that part of this with this parsha is dealing with that. Like Yaakov is approaching this brother, right? This person he's so close with that represents something very complicated, right? And he has to meet with him, talk with him, and then separate from him. And this whole process is so complicated. It's just complicated. And
it's made our life a living hell now because we can't eat oxtail. Where did they do that? That you can't eat from the hindquarter because where he gets hurt,
that's
right?
This, right?
I know.
Yeah.
So then,
but oxtail is that? Is that what it is? Really? And it's good?
I grew up on it.
Really?
Mm.
Really?
Listen, I grew up on everything.
I think though, I don't know the laws of Yiddish shit, but I think it's not the whole hindquarter. We just don't know what part of it it is, so we end up not eating any of it. So I
but
think
you can because you can traver it, you know?
You can what?
You can traver. You can take out the veins.
If you know where exactly
Absolutely.
it is, you could, but I think that most people just don't and they just get rid of the whole. Like, I don't know if the whole hindquarters are actually.
I thought we don't know if they do.
That's why we don't eat any of the hindquarters because we just don't know exactly. I think some experts might know. I don't know.
You can eat it. I know that obviously if you've got an expert who does traver it, take out the veins.
Yeah, it's a gid. It's not a vein. It's a sinew. I think it's like a muscle. I don't know what it is. It's something. It's a gid. What do you call a gid in English? A tendon. It's tendons. Yes. Anyway, I don't know exactly where it is.
Why did they connect that? How did they connect that to kashrut? This specific.
Why? You're saying why?
Yeah.
Right. Oh, hold on. Okay, we'll get there. Just a minute. And maybe it's connected. We were talking about it by Yetzer Tov, Yetzer Hara. I don't know. But anyway, I just wanted to say that I think that a lot of this week's parsha is about approaching this like entity in us or out of us, but there's like this Esav out there that we're dealing with, and how do we deal with him? And anyway, I think that's a part of what's going on in this week's parsha. So it's interesting if we read what happens. So they fight, right? And Vayal Kilo Echolo, the Yetzer Hara or Esav or whatever, the Ish says he can't overcome Yaakov. Then so he maims him, right? He sees that he can't overcome him, so he hurts him really badly. And then he says, Shalcheni ki ala shachar. He says, send me because the sun is coming up. And also that, like, what's the deal, right? It's clearly something, like, it's clearly not a normal person, because if they were a normal person, then who cares if the sun's coming up, right? And Yaakov says, I won't send you until you bless me. What? Right? It's so weird.
Yeah.
And again, I think if we go into like a Hasidic, kind of learning from this, you say, we understand that there's a blessing hidden in this place too. There's a lesson, there's a blessing. I'm not going to let you go until you give me a blessing, until I want to come out on top. Yes, I'm going to come out limping, but bless me. I want something. I want to derive something from this encounter. And then he changes his name. And here Yaakov's name is changed to Israel, which we've mentioned, right? That Yaakov's name was Akov, which means crooked, and Israel means yashar, but it also means sarita, which means to struggle, right? So Yaakov's new name has it's very strong, his new name, a lot of strength. And but the Ish will not say his name.
So who gives him the name?
The Malach,
the Ish.
Mm-hmm. In a minute, Hashem will also give him the name. But here it's given by the Ish. but very soon Hashem also gives him the name.
But I thought that the name Yisrael was more of a positive tone for him, meaning that they say that later on, that whenever you see Yaakov, that's his name, it means like an inner struggle. And when you see Israel, it's time that there's more achdut and it's a positive connotation. There's even one pasuk, because my father-in-law teaches Tanakh, and there's one pasuk even that in the beginning of the pasuk it says Yaakov, and then in the middle I forgot which pasuk it says Israel, and I had asked him why we're both in the same thing, like it changed.
Different names.
And he said because if you look at the beginning part of it, you'll see it's more like a struggle part, and then he said the second part was more like elated and positive.
Right, so I agree, but I think also there's often Yaakov is the person Yaakov, and Israel is something more national. And right. So like in the context of like Am Yisrael or like the future of his children, it's often Israel, and then the more personal Psukim is often Yeah, but I think it's also true what you're saying about struggle and
I mean, when it's personal, it's something that he has conflict with.
I understand. Yeah. I think both exist. Anyway, so he comes out of this encounter, Tzolea, limping, but alive. Right, and I think that's really right. That's how it ends up. He says, he calls this place Pniel because I struggled with Hashem, Panim el Panim, Vatinatzil nafshi. Right, that's the bottom line. But he's limping, and then it says here, Al ken lo yachlu bnei Yisrael et gidan Hashem, asher kaf erech ad hayom hazeh, ki naga b'kaf erech Yaakov gidan Hashem. So this is what we're asking about Deborah. So yes, it says here from here on, Am Yisrael does not eat gidan Hashem. And I think part of what it's saying is that something really big happened here, meaning. Like it's not just an event that we're going to brush away. It's something that we're saying that is serious, and we have to have some kind of law that institutes like a reminder of it. And again, I think this is why Chazal and the Hasidim take it to a place of learning all these lessons about how we deal with Yetzer Hara, because it must be something more than just a story. I think that's part of this. Anyway, then Yaakov actually meets Esav, and he sees him coming and he splits everybody up, and then they meet. And it's interesting. I'm going to read the pasuk where they meet. So it's I'm in Perek Gimel pasuk Dalet. Vayaratz Esav likrato. Esav runs to him and he hugs him. Vaychakeu vayifol al tzavarav. Vayishakeu vayivku. So they see each other, and Esav runs to him and gives him a big hug, and they kiss and they cry. Now on the vayishakeu there's a nekud, right? The dots. Right, which is why Chazal talk about that maybe tried to bite him and maybe whatever, but in Pshat, it's a reunion, it's a hug and a kiss, and it's very meragesh, and it doesn't seem so negative. And then
there's a kiss.
What?
Second time there's a kiss in Tanakh. I'm saying before with Rachel and now here.
Okay.
But he was expecting major animosity.
He was, and he was preparing for it, but there it is. It's not, right?
So is this midrash that I learned that he actually bowed down, and he was bowing down with the intention of bowing down to Hashem, but Esav took it as he was bowing down to him, and that just completely melted all his animosity towards Yaakov.
Right,
is that a midrash?
There's midrash, and the one I was saying that he's afraid, so I think it's the same midrash. That when it says that he bows down, it's not actually to Esav. I think it's the same place. Yes, I think that something's happening here that kind of diffused the animosity, and you could say that it's the bowing down, but I think it's hard to ignore the fact that something else happened before. And I think what happened with the Malach or with the Ish or whatever, I think that's a lot of what created kind of a new space. Anyway, then they have this conversation we're actually going to talk about more when Yaakov offers him a gift, and Esav says, Yesh li rav, right? I have a lot. We're going to talk about this a little more. And then when Yaakov says, please take it, he says, Yesh li kol, right? Yaakov says, Yesh li kol. And first of all, the kol, we talked about how there's bakol mikol kol, right? Hashem barach Avram bakol. So this is Yaakov's kol. Okay, so they all have this kol. I don't know where Yitzchak's kol is. We have to find it.
What is the kol?
Sorry,
just what is the
kol? Means everything, right?
Not hakol, just kol.
It doesn't really matter, but it says we say in Birkat Hamazon, right? Bakol mikol kol. So Chazal say that each kol is relating to one of the avot. So we saw the one where Avraham bakol, we talked about that a few weeks ago, and this is Yaakov's kol, and I don't know where Yitzchak's kol is. Bakol, mikol, it should be mikol. I don't know what it is. Anyway, we should look it up. Yes.
But also, this reminds me a little bit when he wanted to marry Sarah. And like also, they want him to be part of the group. And here also, it's like, if I give you the money, if I give you, you're going to then have to be part of us. And so it's the same kind of thing. No,
I agree. It's very much reminiscent. He says, he tries to give him something, and Esau says, no. And Yaakov says, yes. It sounds like Yaakov wants the deal. He feels like he has a debt and he wants it done. Like he doesn't want to stay indebted to Esau.
Right.
Yes. And I don't know if this really helps, but it sounds like that's what he's trying to do here. He says to him, where does it say? I don't know. I thought it says it here. But anyway, he says, please take it. And he, it's interesting also when he says, it sounds like he's referencing that struggle at night, right? He says, I see you like I see God. What? Like, what does that have to do with anything? But here what he says is, kachnat birchati, right? When he says, take my gift, he doesn't say take my gift. He says, take my blessing, take my bracha. Or what does that mean, kachnat birchati? So it sounds like he's trying to pay him back for the blessing that he stole.
But doesn't he ask him, he asks him for his burial site, to sell him his burial place or something? Yaakov asks Esau again.
Here?
In this parsha.
Maybe it's in the
Okay. I need to speak to my rabbi.
Anyway, so then Esau says, okay, let's travel together. And Yaakov says, no. Yaakov says, you go that way, I'll go that way. He has an excuse. He says, we travel slow. I have lots of children and animals. But really, he's saying, we're done. I paid you back. We're done. That's really what he's saying. And it's just interesting. I didn't think about it before, that when he wants to give Esau the bracha, and he wanted the malach to give him a bracha, it must be related. I never thought about it before.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. And then they separate, and Yaakov goes and he settles in Sukkot. And then in Perek Yudchet it says, Vayavo Yaakov Shalem ir Shechem. He comes to Shechem and he's Shalem. And it's very interesting what this Shalem means. So Rashi says Shalem, he healed. He was limping and now he's okay. He's fine. Okay. The Rashbam, I think, says Shalem is the name of a place. Okay. And it sounds like Shechem is like an area and Shalem is a place, but whatever it is, I think it's describing some kind of like, right? He left his home and he had all these troubles with Lavan, and he comes and he wants to have this like peace, this peace, Shalem, and then Dinah is the next, almost the next pasuk. Okay, but right before Dinah, he stops and he buys some land. And who does he buy it from? From the children of Hamor, which maybe is already like preparing us for the next story with Dinah. But he buys.
Wait, why is the story of Dinah kind of accurate? This story about what's the connection
to Shechem?
Because they're in Shechem.
What's the connection to Esau? So Chazal explained the connection is that it's a punishment that Esau could have married Dinah, and Yaakov didn't let that happen. And in Chazal, it seems like this happens because it sounds like Yaakov should have let him marry Dinah, and maybe he would have done Shuvah, and maybe everything would have been okay, and maybe it would have been kind of like a good thing.
But it's a punishment for Yaakov, not for Dinah.
Oh, for sure. Well, Chazal also don't like Dinah so much. They say, but it said Dinah Yetzanita. They say she wasn't so modest.
They said she went into town and like she was like that. That's how she got up in trouble.
Yeah,
she was like the typical teenager that was curious and.
Well, it sounds like she was a little bit more than a curious teenager.
Being nice.
Yetzanit sounds like like a showgirl, like a
Sorry, I love the romanticized version of the Torah, in case you haven't noticed.
This is Chazal. It's the Midrash I'm quoting now. Anyway, but I just wanted to say before we go into Dina, we're not going to do a lot about Dina. I'm just going to mention some things. But before we go into Dina, so he buys Shechem here. So we mentioned that Abraham bought Merat Machpelah, and that Shechem is one of the other places that are bought. And I think in Chumash, these are the only places bought. Like Har HaBayit is bought in Nevi'im, but I don't think there's another place that anybody buys in Chumash.
Because people of Shem, and the people of Shem are living there, and Yaakov is there, and it belongs to him, and his daughter goes out. I just feel like they would be more afraid to do anything to
I'm
her.
not sure what he bought. I don't think he bought all of Shechem. He bought a Chet Katzadeh. He bought a spot. Yeah, he bought like a home. I don't think he bought the whole of Shechem.
The area where your stuff is buried is what we own.
So then how come we don't have that presence in Shechem like we do in Hebron?
In terms of
people living in Shechem, Jewish people living in
because
Shechem.
right now politically it's not a good idea.
Neither is Hebron, but we're still there.
No,
I
Beit
think that
Lechem doesn't
Hebron-
either. There are not people living in Beit Lechem.
But we didn't buy Bethlehem.
But we have, no,
We bought, but you say we bought Shechem.
We did 3,000 years ago, but the government today doesn't recognize that as a legal sale.
But they recognize
Unfortunately.
Hebron as being legal.
No, Hebron is not because it's a legal sale. It's just because there have been
stronghold
Jews there
there.
forever. There's been a Jewish community in Hebron forever.
But not in Shechem. That makes sense then.
There is a yeshiva in Kever Yosef, and there's a balagan there all the time.
Yes.
But
That's
there
not
wasn't a
true.
continuous community living there throughout the years.
So
And
that's
Hebron
probably
really
why.
did have. I think there was always a community in Hebron. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there was.
But there's also the story of Dina happening there. It's not exactly.
Shechem is very complicated.
Yeah, but I'm
Shechem is a
just
really
saying,
complicated
It
place.
feels like such a dirty place to be with all
If you
that
believe
going
that
on.
places have energy, the energy in Shechem, the energy in Hebron is complicated. The energy in Shechem is super complicated. It's complicated. Anyway, so there's the story of Dinah, which we're not going to go into all of it. Just I'm going to mention a couple of things that I think are important, kind of like for our understanding of what's going on. So in terms of Yaakov is kind of absent in the story of Dinah. She's defiled, and he doesn't say anything. And the brothers, who I think that there's a lot to say about what they did. I'm not going to go into it, but they're really filling in a gap. They're really frustrated with their father who's not acting here. And I think, first of all, it reminds me a lot of Yitzchak at the end of his life.
Why?
Because Yitzchak doesn't see so well, and there's some kind of like this. There's
This is after Rachel died, right?
before.
No, before Dina's before Rachel died.
Yeah.
And it seems like Yaakov just wants to settle down, and we all know
He doesn't want the
we all know
alcohol.
that that's not going to happen. But at this point, he wants to be Ish Tam Yoshev Arim. That's who he is, and it's just not working. But anyway, it seems like in Dinah, there's a lot to say about, mistakes. I don't know if mistake is the word, but it seems like there's a criticism, a strong criticism on Yaakov, that he didn't get more involved, that he didn't do much. Now, it's possible that his sons were a little bit too hot-headed, but he wasn't there. He wasn't there to take care of things.
Wasn't it like the norm though?
That women
people,
were
that people
taken?
behaved like that.
like Shechem and Hamor.
That women were taken against their will.
I
Wasn't
think
that
it was
like-
also the norm that their brothers would avenge
was that?
them. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
But
wasn't
then
there. for
he
them.
pipes up after the fact.
Right. After the fact, he says, "You embarrass me." I think that the real reason he's upset is because they tricked him. The big trick of having them circumcised as if they're making peace and joining, and then killing them. That I think was very
Shallow.
very hard for him. Like if I don't even know what it was very underhanded the way it was
con.
done. Yeah, it was not like a con. It was a con.
It was.
Yeah. Even though whatever, it's very complicated.
There's also some Chazal that say that Dina didn't want to leave. Like, meaning she was okay there.
Right.
Like, it's not necessarily that this was 100% against her will, even.
Right.
It wasn't the right thing to happen. So maybe that's why he was so passive. I
Maybe.
don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like the Avot were so careful about who their children married. For him to just let go and let Dina end up there is so strange.
Right.
Right? It doesn't really make sense.
Do we know how old she was?
I don't know. Maybe the
You
Midrash
said
says.
like a teenager?
I think she must have been relatively young and she fit in a box last Perek, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, but it's interesting. A couple of things are interesting in this story. One of them is that the word vaye'aneha is the word that relates to relations, and here it seems like it's probably rape. But the word vaye'aneha, inui, right, is sometimes torture, but I don't think it's torture here. I think the word ona, which is relations, and the word inui are very connected. And their idea is that they're kind of like flip sides of the same verb. Like there could be healthy ona, and there could be unhealthy inui, but it's really the same word. And Rav Melamed says that when relations are a ma'aneh, when they're a conversation and they're communication, then it's good. And when they're not, then it could be inui. But it's just fascinating, it's the same word. Anyway, moving right along. Oh, but before that, I just want to say that the two characters, Levi and Shimon, who are like the main players in this story, the main characters, throughout Jewish history, they keep cropping up as kind of like we'll see at the end of Bereshit that Yaakov is not very happy with them. And then later in Chumash, we see how Levi ends up doing tshuva and Shimon kind of doesn't.
And tshuva is what? Not participating in
well,
the ega?
So Levi and Shimon are hot-headed. They're hot-headed. And the question is what you do with that. Do you become, kanai l'dvar Hashem, or do you just stay hot-headed?
What is the point of Levi tshuva?
So we see it at Chet HaEgel, where Levi stands up and they say Mila Hashem Elai, and they come out against Chet HaEgel. And then with Pinchas, right? So Pinchas is from Shevet Levi and Zimri is from Shevet Shimon. And we really see kind of like this, they end up coming against each other. Shimon is having relations with this Kozbi Batzil, right? This Midianite, and the son of Levi comes and kills him. So that's really kind of the place where we see that, Levi says we're in, and Shimon doesn't. And Shimon kind of disappears, right? We don't really have Shevet Shimon after the Galut, they're gone. But this is where it starts. And then after this, so Yaakov comes back to Beit El, right? Vayetze started in Beit El, and this parsha ends in Beit El. And
why did he go back?
He's coming back to Israel. He's going home, and this is apparently where he crosses into Israel. And he goes. He makes a mizbeach, and he brings a sacrifice to Hashem. And in this story, all of his children all take off their avodah zarah. And all the Mefarshim all say that this is avodah zarah that they had from Shechem.
Yeah, I just don't even understand why they went to Shechem.
Why they went there at all?
Yes.
Why they bought land there?
Yeah.
I don't know. Apparently, he thought this is a place to be. Yeah, it seems like it's a bad place, right? You're saying it's like a negative, like Sodom. Like where are you
It's
going?
not that far from,
Why didn't you just
Arbai.
keep going? Why didn't you go to Beit El, right? To begin with, I don't know.
I ask you, Amalek comes from who?
Amalek comes from Esav.
Okay, so then that to me would make sense why he wouldn't want his kid to marry. He wouldn't want Dina to marry.
I understand, but the Midrash seems to be saying that Amalek wouldn't come from
Oh,
Esav.
meaning it would never have been. Ooh. Okay.
No, he knew Esav was a complicated guy, but the Midrash seems to say, I forget where it says it, but there's a Midrash about how like having a good wife can make you good. Like there's like this whole thing about how.
I've heard that.
Yeah. Anyway, so this piece, they're back in Beit El and they bring him his back, and this is where it says that that Dvorah dies, and Chazal say that it's hinting that Rivka also dies. So Yaakov comes back to Israel and his mother dies, meaning he wants to come home and he wants his mother to meet his family, and it doesn't happen.
But he hadn't seen her in about 25 years or something.
And he just misses her. Yeah.
Why do they make such a big deal about Devorah dying?
I think that they're hinting that Rivka dies. That's what Chazal said. That they're saying when it says Devorah dies, actually Rivka died.
I don't understand why.
Why does it say it that way?
Yeah. Devorah is not Rivka.
Right, but there is Rashi relates to, and I forget what he says. He says something about I think because it's something about the embarrassment that she had that Esav. Can I glance at your Rashi for a second?
Oh, yeah, of course.
It says, Rashi says, ותמה דבורה, מה עניין דבורה בבית יעקב? ולפי שאמרה רבקה ליעקב שלחתי לקחתי משם. It doesn't say that.
Are you saying that they were alluding to Rivka dying?
Yeah,
But they
it
were
doesn't
two
say that
separate
here.
people.
No, I know, but so the translation says it, but I don't see it inside. It does say it. Why does it mention Dvorah? So he says, because Rivka said to Yaakov, I will send you and I'll bring you back. So he says that, Rashi says that Rivka had sent Dvorah to kind of meet him and bring him back, and she died on the way, and it's alluding to the death of Rivka, even though Rashi doesn't say it actually, but the Ramban says it, and it's Chazal talk about it, alluding to the death of Rivka. Why isn't Rivka's death mentioned, right? So I forget, but somewhere there's a midrash that explains something about how it was an embarrassment to her to be the mother of Esav, and that it was like,
Wow.
I don't remember why that is related to mentioning her death, but I'll look at it.
Okay, so you're saying that they alluded to her death because of her embarrassment of her.
I think so. It probably says it somewhere in the English. Anyway, so
That is so weird.
She's one of the
because
imams.
Hashem gives her these two children. It's not that, she was a bad mother. This is what already we know from the
no,
Talmud,
but I
that in
think the
stomach-
Midrash says something like that she knows that if they talk about her death, then everyone will talk about her evil son. I don't remember exactly what it says. But that's what the Midrash talks about. Oh, we're almost done. Okay, I'm sorry. I want to finish the parsha and then I want to do something else. Okay, so the parsha ends with the birth of Binyamin and Rachel dying, and also Yitzchak dies here, and so we have Rivka, Dvorah, Yitzchak, and Rachel dying in this parsha. Pretty heavy, and then we also have this one pasuk that I'm not really going to go into about Yaakov having relations with Bilhah, right? Which
why did he move his bed to her tent?
So first of all, in Pshat it says he had relations with Bilhah, right? The Midrash says that he just moved the beds, right? It sounds like in the Midrash that he wanted, Rachel died, and he wanted to be clear that his mother would get the main position after that. And he switched the beds, right? So that it would be clear that Leah's bed is next to Yaakov.
But why did Yaakov not do that himself?
I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, so this week's parsha really ends with kind of like a summary of the children of Esav, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. That's the end of this week's parsha. But what I really wanted to talk about is that conversation we mentioned about the Yesh Li Rav and Yesh Li Kol, because it's become like kind of a symbol of the relationship with this world, right? Yesh Li Rav or Yesh Li Kol. And so if you look at your sheet, I brought you the sheet, right? So when Yaakov offers a gift, Esav says, no, thank you, I have a lot. And Yaakov says, no, please, please take it. And then he says, but he says, and at the end of the day, Esav takes it, right? He's offered a gift. He says, I don't need it, but he takes it anyways. Okay, so Rashi says, that's the first source here, Yesh li kol sipuke, I have everything I need. Sipuke is like my, to fill my needs. Vasu davar b'lshon gava. I'm sorry, Esav diber b'lshon gava. Esav speaks b'lshon gava. He says, I have so much stuff, meaning, I have a lot. He's saying, no, thank you, I have a lot, but he's not really saying no, thank you. He's saying, I'm good, right? I'm great, I'm good. But at the end of the day, he takes it anyways, and he says, Yesh li Rav. Rashi says, Yoter v'yoter michdei tzorki. Not only do I have a lot, but I have more than I need. And when I have more than I need, I can always have a little more, right? That's what Rashi says. And a lot of people talk about how Yesh li rav is a very modern kind of like, you have it, but you can always have more, right? What are advertisements based on, right? You have a lot, but it's okay. You need one more this, one more that, one more shirt.
Enough.
Right? Not enough is never enough. And there's a lot of talk about how yesh li rav and yesh li kol is kind of like this, this place of like, I have what I need, and and yesh li rav is this consumer kind of, more and more and more and more, right? What?
It's a baya.
It's a baya, right? It's a baya. So I actually brought you something on a little bit of a different angle, even though I think that this is a totally good topic that we started with, but what I brought is a little bit different. It's connected, but it's a little different. And I brought the Orach Chaim first. So he says, he starts out with one explanation, and this is his second explanation. That's right. He says, Od Yirmos. So he says, Od Yirmos, Be'amro Kol. So when Yaakov says Kol, what is Kol? Shehi B'chinat HaKdusha, Shenikret Kol. So he says, when Yaakov says Yesh li Kol, he doesn't mean I have a lot of stuff, or I have everything I need. He says, I'm connected to the midah of Kol. I'm connected to like the bchina of Kol. ובחינה זו, כשתהיה מושגת באדם, אין החיסרון עושה רושם, והחסר נשלם מעצמו. So it says, when people are connected to this idea of Kol, what does that mean? They're connected to something spiritual, they're connected to Kedusha, then their physical lack is not a big deal. So he says, when there's a chisaron, the chisaron lo oseh roshem.
What's chisaron again?
Chisaron is a lack.
Lack.
So the lack is not apparent. It's not Roshem is like, it's like when you're writing, like when you, last night I was writing and the pen didn't work, so it doesn't, Roshem, it's a lo Roshem, right? It doesn't work. So he says, there is a chisaron, but it doesn't affect me. And he says, the midah that Yaakov's talking about is that physical lack doesn't touch him. Why? Because he's connected to Kedusha. V'hachaser nishlam me'atzmo. So when there's a lack, it kind of fills itself in by itself. So when he's blessed, Yaakov is blessed that he'll be like the sand, right, of the ocean. So think about sand, right? You pick up a handful of sand and it just all fills in, right? Mm-hmm. So he says part of the bracha that you'll be like sand is that you won't feel the pain and the lack of the physical world. That you'll be so connected to something else that you won't feel it. V'hi birkat kol, v'hu sod ka v'kemach lo yichle. So ka v'kemach lo yichle in Sefer Melachim, there is this blessing that you'll never want, pretty much, right? V'yan ma sheparashti upasuk v'Yaakov v'Yaakov Yaakov shalem. So he relates to the pasuk we talked about before, right? That it says shalem. U'bracha zo zochu ba kol ha'avot, Avraham bakol, Yitzchak mikol, Yaakov kol. So he says this kind of relationship to the world, this kind of shlemut, he says all the avot got some kind of bchina of this. Ma'ata noten tuv ta'am b'amro kach na'at birchati, ki chanani elokim v'yesh li kol, v'anechsav nishlam me'atzmo. So he says now you understand why Yaakov says it in this context. Yaakov says to him, I know you have a lot, but please take what I have because I'm not going to feel the lack. Meaning, it's not that I have a lot. I don't need to have a lot. I need my connection with Hashem, and I'm happy to give this to you. Please take it because it's fine. It's really fine, and I'm not gonna feel that it's missing. I prefer that you have it. Mm-hmm. I think so he's explaining that's why it comes in this context, the Yesh li Kol. So the Orach Chaim says, be'etzem, that Yesh li Rav and Yesh li Kol is kind of an interplay between the physical reality and the spiritual reality, right? Mm-hmm. In the physical, when we're focused on the physical reality, more is more and less is less. When we're focused on something else, obviously we can have pain and we can have lack. But the more we're focused on something spiritual, the less relevant, the less central physical lack is. And that's what he's saying about this Yesh li Kol. That Yaakov is connected to something else.
Okay. Mm-hmm. That the Kol also represents like the Torah or all the study that he did. Like he had like the kelim because
you're saying Kol is kli.
Right, is the kli, and because he had it, the inner part. Like you even see, like before he left, like I heard a chazal just recently that was saying, right when he left and he was running away, it wasn't that he had nothing on him. That he comes to Lavan, that he had nothing on him. And of course, Yitzchak and Rivka gave him stuff to go on
במקלי
his
עברתי
way.
את הירדן הזה. I came over with my staff. I had nothing.
Right, but he really did. But he argued and they gave away everything that he had so that he could continue on because he knew that by having that spiritual thing, he'd be okay.
It's so interesting. The Avot were all wealthy. And it's so interesting to say they're wealthy, but this focus is not that.
Right, they're not, that's not what makes them. It doesn't define them. They had it, but it wasn't what we looked at.
It's very interesting. Yeah. Okay, I want to read one spot to mess with you. I brought you two. We're just going to do the first one. And he quotes the Or Chaim we just read. Okay, and he says, Be'or Chaim ki chanani v'chulei ki yesh li kol. Okay, and he says, Katav, ki al yedei hamatana lo yichsar ayen sham, pirush mikol kol. So he's explaining what we just said, that the Or Chaim is explaining that even though he's going to give a gift, he's not going to feel it. He's not going to feel the lack. And he says, that pirush, ki lichora kol yoter mirav. So he says, if you look at the words kol and rav, kol is more than rav, right? Rav is a lot, and kol is everything, right?
Enough.
Mm-hmm. So he says, כי לכל קול יותר מרב שאמר עשיו. אך איך יוכל אדם לומר קול? והרי כמה דברים שהיה שלא היה לו. So he says, how can anybody ever have everything, right? You never have everything. And then he says, so now he's going to explain the Or Chaim. אך מי שדבוק בשורש עליון, מה שיש לו הוא בחינת קול. So he says, when somebody is really connected to Hashem, whatever you have, you feel like it's everything. You're thankful, right?
Yes.
And then he says, כי כל דבר יש בו נקודת חיות מהשם יתברך. ובנקודה זו כלול הכל. And I think here he's referencing what Hindi was saying, that kol relates to the word kli. So he says, when you realize that everything you have is from Hashem, and it's not just from Hashem, it's not just a physical thing, it's something that's connected to Hashem, then you realize that hakol kalul b'kol, meaning the question isn't how much you have, it's how you relate to what you have. כמו שכתוב במדרש, הכל בחזקת סומה. So he says, everyone, it's as if they're blind. וכולי, גבי הגר שמצא באר. So he talks about Hagar. This is a different piece in the Sfat Emet. I'll just explain what he's talking about. So there's a midrash about, there's the pasuk where Hagar is in the desert, right? And there's no water. And suddenly Hashem opens her eyes and she sees there's a well, right? So was there always a well? Is it a miracle that suddenly there was a well? So the Sfat Emet says, no, there was always a well, but she didn't see it. And suddenly her eyes opened up and she saw what she had. And he's saying this is the midah of kol, that you see what you have, because we can have something and not see it. We could be summa, we can be blind, or we can see it. And he says, this is what yesh li kol is. It's not that I don't care about what I have. It's that I see that what I have is wow.
That's very special. Yeah. It's very important.
That pirush, shebekol makom yesh hakol mamash. He says, everywhere, there's everything. Like everything we have is a lot more than we realize. And he says, if we really see that what we have is something with a lot of meaning, it's something from Hashem, it's exactly what Hashem meant to give us, then we don't need more, because what we see and what we relate to it in a way that it is hakol. וזה שנקרא היה שלום. I'm sorry, I'm not sure what the hey is here. But he says that's shalom, שכל נקודה מכוח השם יתברך נמצא שם הכל, ועל ידי זה, מי שמדבק כל דבר בשורשו, יש לו הכל, ואין חילוק אם יש לו רב או משהו. So again, he says, if we understand that what we have is from Hashem, and we focus on it in this way, it doesn't matter if we have a lot or a little, because this is it. We focus on it as it is. וזהו בחינת שבת, שכל חפציך עשויים ואין חסר כלל, כי הוא שלמות הכל. So he says on Shabbat, whatever you did, you have, right? You're done, right? No, I don't know about you, but me on every Shabbat, if there's a little time, then maybe I'll make something more, right? Oh, my husband goes crazy. He's like, we're done, stop, right?
Just
you know. But on Shabbat, you're done. You can't do that. It's done. It's done. What's done is done. And he says that's shlemut. Shlemut is being in a place that you realize that what's done is done. It is what it is. And it's just right.
I love Shabbat.
I also love Shabbat. It's so funny because someone was just saying to me, they have like a lot of little kids and they're saying how Shabbat is so tiring for them because like they're running after kids all day. And they're saying one day, and I was like, oh wow, I forgot that it was like that. I mean, I also have little kids, but it's not the same thing. I don't have babies and I can go take a nap. There's something like very like, anyway, he says, that's Shalem. That's Shalem. Shalem is that place that Yaakov was hoping to get to, but he kind of has. So yes, there's a lot of stuff that's going to happen to Yaakov in the next few parshas, but he does have this bchina of Shalem and of kol, and of realizing that what you have is wow, it's miduyak, right? You know the word in Israel, that's the buzzword, miduyak. It's just right. אבל עשיו אמר, רב, והוא הריבוי שבא מכוח האדם. So he says, Rav is a lot, but a lot, he says, is something that it's human made, right? We want more. That more is very human. And I think part of what he's suggesting here is that Hashem is echad, right? But people, it's many, 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 right? So that connecting to the place of kol is connecting to echad, connecting to a place that the how many physical things we have doesn't matter as much. Like it's an achdut as opposed to a ribui, right? Realizing that the world is connected to Hashem is seeing everything as echad, and looking at a world without a connection to Hashem is seeing things that are disconnected. So Rav is a mindset. It's not an actual physical reality. And he says Yaakov has the kol mindset, and Esav has the Rav mindset. Let's just read the last sentence. מי שבא בכוח השם הוא אחדות, ושם נמצא הכל. Right? When we come from בכוח Hashem, with connection to Hashem, then everything is one. וזה שכתוב, זה לשונו, יפה שעה אחת בתשובה, מעשים טובים, מכל חיי העולם הבא. ומשום כך חיי העולם הזה וכולי, ופירוש שעה אחת, הוא כנ"ל. So he says, the Midrash says that one moment of עולם הבא is worth more than the whole world put together. And he's saying, it's not that one moment of Olam Haba is so precious. He's saying Olam Haba is one. There's no time in Olam Haba. He's talking about this oneness. And he's saying, what is Olam Haba? Is relating to the world in this way of one. And he says, Sha'a achat hu kana, liot hakol be'achdut. What does that mean, Sha'a achat? Is to realize, right, when we're running, then we're not b'sha'a achat. To be b'sha'a achat is to be in one place and to appreciate what we have and to be in a oneness and achdut, right? And that's what Olam Haba is. And this world is lots, many, 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 right? This world is lots and lots and lots. I want to say just a couple more words about this. I know we're 12 o'clock. I'm just going to say one sentence. I think that this idea, first of all, I think the modern day society very, very much is focused on the many, many.
It's focused
on the
what?
many, on the Rav, right?
Oh,
on
yeah.
more and more and more and more. And I think that it is a disconnect from spirituality to focus on physicality. And I want to quote Rav Daniel Cohen from Bat Ayin, who likes to say that everything in the world has a reason, right? So also this need we have for more and more and more and more, it apparently needs to be two, right? It's not shtuyot. So he says that we should try to kind of reroute that necessity for many, many to spirituality, because in spirituality we do want more, right? In physicality we should try to come to that place of that echad. And when I think about this idea, I feel like it's so chazak that like I love to assessment system where that like sometimes you open the refrigerator and like there's something there you want, but you need something, right? And he says, you think your stomach is rumbling, but really your neshama is rumbling, right? You need something. It's not food. You need something. And I think that this idea is that we should go back to that place of echad, and that fills in the gaps. And that often we feel like we need something. I mean, obviously sometimes we really need something, and sometimes you're hungry. Okay, when you're hungry, please eat. But when we're not hungry and we're just feeling a hole in our stomach, because then we should think what we really need. And it might not be parsha. It might be, I don't know, it might be davening. It might be a walk. It might be a moment of quiet. But I think often we this urge for many, many takes over. And this more and more and more, it's a real thing. And if we manage to kind of like retranslate it, then we can
Be content with what we've got.
be shalem. You're welcome to read the other spots of it. He says similar things in a little bit different angles.
Well, the thing that I own, my most coveted thing that I own in my house, is a couch that my son found by a pach in Efrat. I can't explain it. It's just what it gives me. It's the most comfortable thing, and it's like he found it by pach. But it's what it means, you know.
It means the little things in life make us very happy.
Yeah, it really does. Oh, Rachel, thank you.
Thank you.
So does this mean you're off for the rest of the day?
So I actually took the rest of the day off too. My students have a teal in the morning, so I had the morning off, and I'm supposed to teach in the afternoon, but I actually canceled because I have an event that I'm running tonight for like my daughter's bar mitzvah program, so each parent has to.
What are you doing?
We're doing reflective conversation seminar, like a little, like workshop.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know if you know Jonathan Segal from Neve Daniel, so he's coming to do like he's
I
great.
teach with him.
You do?
Oh, he is wonderful.
He teaches.
מי היום מדבר, אתה בזום?
עוד לא.
מי היום מדבר בערב?
אשר הריסון. אני באה.
אני מכירה משהו טובה. אמרת לי, באופן אישי.
No, אשר is a prince.
אז את מגיעה היום?
Yeah,
יופי.
7:15.
זהו, רגע, תעשה סגירה.
סליחה.
יופי.
Yes, of course.
לא, זה בשבע.
Oh, 7?
כן.
Oh, בלה אמרה לי 7:15. 7.
בלה אמרה מאחורי הקלעים, אתה רוצה לדבר, אבל לפני כן זה לבוא, לשתף.